Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are here with episode 57. Today we're really looking forward to bringing you this episode about some tips on pronunciation, and we will be struggling through trying to pronounce some words in a few different foreign languages. So we hope you enjoy listening to us butcher some difficult words in foreign languages, with the hopes that maybe it will give you the confidence to try to speak more often in whatever foreign language you are learning. Break through that language barrier and pronounce all those difficult words. Even if you stumble a couple times, that's a normal part of it. But we're really looking forward to bringing this episode to you, and we hope you all enjoy it. We are definitely going to be enjoying ourselves this. When we're recording this, it's kind of regardless when we're recording this. So this should be fun. And without further ado, I am here to introduce my co-host, the man with the plan, the dude with the solidest drops on the soundboard, my buddy Jared.
Salutations, and welcome. You really caught me off guard with that. You should have seen me. I was just like,
We're trying to figure out what to hit on the soundboard.
I didn't know, but I think I know which one I want to hit. Welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast, though. We like to talk about all things. We like to talk about untranslatables. You could, for example,
talk that calf out of that heifer.
Yes. Or slipping on gate or something like that. But first, please, we also like to spread a little love. And you can do that on Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1, or Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast at Jesus Christ. Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast, or email us, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Or our favorite way to spread a little love is with 5-star reviews, ratings and reviews on Stitcher and iTunes. Do they call it iTunes, Apple Podcast? I don't know what they call it, but you know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Don't play dumb with us.
We know if you're listening to this, you probably got some brains up there. So don't be afraid to use them.
Yeah. Speaking of brains, by the way, I had quite the cultured evening last night.
Oh, nice. Let's hear about it.
I was almost late for it, first of all.
Uh-oh. That's not the way to start
I took a nap beforehand because I was exhausted. I was like, well, let me get a nap in. And I set an alarm. Plenty of time in advance to wake up. Alarm went off. And I think when the alarm went off, in the moment, I not even totally forgot about the thing. Then I woke up like 30 minutes later, which was when I was supposed to leave. And I had in my navigation said I'd get there 3 minutes late. And I also had to stop for gas. Of course. Yep. Not only did I have no gas, but it was literally as I started driving, it hit the ding, the red level.
Low fuel.
So I had to get gas.
Right.
And so I had to do that. And I made up time and managed to get there exactly at 7:28. It starts at 7:30.
Nice.
Not to brag.
Nice.
Anyway.
That's got to be Murphy's Law in its essence right there, though. You wake up late.
Of course.
Got to get gas.
I mean, that's what I get for taking a nap to begin with.
Right. I'm surprised you didn't have a sock missing somewhere that you had to find or something.
Luckily, I had my outfit planned, and we'll get to my outfit in a second. But so it was a concert at it was a chamber concert.
Red Velvet,
yeah,
right?
Red Velvet Hall Salon is what they call it. It's at a guy's house, and him and his wife, and they call it the Red Velvet Hall. There's art all over their living room, actually the whole place, and the walls are beautifully painted. And I noticed today because I've been going to this place for these concerts for about a year and a half, maybe. The art on the wall changes. There's stuff I was like, oh, I haven't seen that before. Anyway, so this concert was a guy. The main person was a composer named Michael Jupstorm. He's 38 from Minnesota, and it was essentially his concert, and he was accompanied by Luosha Fang, who is a violinist and a violist, and Clancy Newman, who is they call it violoncello everywhere. But I just call it cello.
Cello. I mean, you can just call it cello.
But everywhere I see totally it in where it's written down and say programs or something like that, they tend to call it violoncello. Is that the official term?
Probably.
So anyway,
I've seen it both ways on music programs, though.
Okay.
So
So what they played, they started the piece with a Bartok piece. Do you know Bartok?
Oh, nice. I actually have a loathing hatred for Bartok because when I was studying music, we had 2 or 3 Bartok practice books for piano. They had I think 2 of them had a pink cover. I can see the cover in my mind because those exercises took me forever to learn. And I'm horrible at piano as it is. So yes, I know Bartok.
Okay.
Not a fan of it because of those books, but I'm sure he's got a lot of great music out there.
And so that was a very nice piece. The group they were so good, and it's so fun to see. I mean, this is such intimate quarters. This is someone's living room, and these are professionals. Right. It's so cool to see the eye contact, to see just the to really see the precision up close. I love that. And then they played a piece called Daydreams and Night Visions, which was composed by Michael Dvorak. I found that one to be interesting. It was go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? Is it Djupstorm or Djupstrom?
Storm. DJUPSTORM.
Oh, I must have read that wrong then. Okay.
You can actually look them up if you because you can see a picture of them.
It's STROM. It's Djupstrom.
Oh, then that's not my fault. I'm putting that on the guy that puts on the concerts in his email. I copied it from there.
Unless he misspelled his own name on YouTube.
No, I doubt it.
I think it's Djupstrom.
The other thing I wanted to mention, that's not my fault, though. I blame that other guy that put the concert on.
You're good. I just want to make sure that our listeners out there, can find this guy later.
Yes. Yeah. No, thank you. Of course.
But
I want to give him his
thing,
proper credit too.
For sure. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is you're absolutely right. One of my favorite things about intimate concert settings like that is watching how the musicians interact with each other using facial expressions, body language, because it's especially with classical music, and if you're, it's mostly acoustic instruments, right? So you can't be you can't yell take the coda, you can't do that. If you're when I was playing live music a lot with a couple different rock bands I was in, you could mouth and even whisper into each other's ears. Well, you have to yell in their ear, but the audience won't hear it. But when it's the really close, intimate kind of concert, you have to basically use body language, and it's kind of hypnotic to watch really good musicians who have played with each other before perform pieces together, because it's everyone's so in sync. It's really amazing.
And to me, there is an added level to that, it being that these were composed by this guy, by Djupstrom. And so, but yes, you're very right, and I love it too. I'm a piano player in training, so I love to watch, and I've watched a lot of musicians there, and a lot of musicians of varying cultures. I've seen. For example, this was a American pianist, a Chinese violin and viola. She played one viola piece, and then the Clancy, the cellist, I believe he was also American. Actually, I know he was, but I've also seen Russian pianists, and I've seen Chinese pianists there, and I believe a Korean one too. And just seeing you can almost see just the cultures and their varying styles. And I still think about that. Was she Russian? I believe she was Russian. I still think about that Russian pianist sometimes because she was so her precision and her what do you call it when it her how professional it was. It was so how her fingers were so consistent. Blew my mind. And how effortless it seemed. And then so it's just so cool to see the different. But anyway. And then they played they also did a lot of talking about why they chose these pieces. And then the next piece,
which I really enjoy. I love hearing things like that.
And that's why
concerts. That's
why he played the 2 pieces that were played that were not his were the Bartok one, and then they ended with a how do you say his name? I need to find it. So Dvorak piece.
Dvorak.
And the reason that I'm just leave it alone. And the reason that the reason that he chose those were big motivations for him, and he enjoyed. Nice. He said he enjoyed a lot of the folk music motivations and a lot of that style, and they were all talking about how they think that Dvorak
You can just say Dvorak.
Dvorak. Speaking of difficult pronunciations,
Right.
And they were talking about how he was kind of underappreciated in comparison to a lot of those big classical people like Beethoven and Strauss and Mozart and stuff like that.
Oh,
and he
absolutely.
said that he played in a lot of he played in a trio of pianists, and he felt like he always wanted to play this one Dvorak piece. Jesus.
There you go,
Dvorak piece, and he felt like he can never really do it properly because the other players never gave it the proper respect that they seem to give some of those bigger classical staples.
Right. I have to say, man, I absolutely love Dvorak's music. It's absolutely fantastic.
Dude. Sorry, go ahead. I just agree.
No, go ahead.
I've never heard it, but that they played a six what do you call the sections?
What's the
Like a six
what do you mean? Six, like, was it a suite?
It was like a six
Movements.
Yeah,
you mean
yes.
six movements?
Yes, there's six
six
movement
movements.
piece.
Uh-huh.
And it was about 45 minutes long. And so what they did was they played the Bartok. They played Daydreams and Night Visions. They played a piece called Shifu Majka Budasa Walamai. And I believe that was based off of something. Maybe I should Google that just before I start talking out of my ass. But okay.
And fun fact, Jared.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Fun fact about Dvorak, he actually came, I believe he was the conductor of, I think it was the New York Symphony. So I know he spent time in America, and one of his last pieces he wrote is highly influenced by different styles of American music.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool.
So the title I just read, Sejfu Machka Budase Walimai, which I'm sure I said wrong, speaking of pronunciation, is
that Czech?
No, it is Bosnian, Serbian, from like Montenegro and Serbia. And Serbia, yeah. And so it's based off of a traditional, is a traditional song that is believed to have originated in Sarajevo centuries ago. And so, I believe this was his own. I don't really understand how composers do this, because he was talking about, and I wish I could. Maybe I'll ask my piano teacher about this. But he was talking about how these were his pieces, but they're also how his motivations are from other songs like that. And I don't still understand how that works. How composers are writing these songs, yet they're heavily how he's getting this motivation from these other. I just was confused.
Can I tackle this question?
Do you understand my struggle, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I get totally where you're coming from. But I can tell you, as someone who studied classical guitar, this happens fairly frequently.
Okay.
Because a lot of orchestral music, you can't obviously move over to the guitar one for one, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of different composers will write. They'll maybe title the piece like a theme from Mozart's blah blah blah, or
okay.
And so and some of them are transcriptions of pieces over onto a different instrument. Other ones are inspirations from other pieces by previous composers, or Brahms did a lot of different pieces that were based off of different styles of dances. He has a lot of great, I'm pretty sure they're called Hungarian dances. I played at my senior recital a duet with my former guitar teacher. Shout out to Dan Palmer. He's an amazing guitarist. We played Hungarian Dance number 5, I believe.
Okay.
And these were all based off of different folk dances and folk melodies. So it's kind of very similar. So I think
that actually helps me. That actually helps me, in retrospect, understand a lot of the explanations he was giving for his pieces then.
Right. But ask your piano teacher and let me know the next episode, because I'm curious if she has a different answer.
Okay. It also makes sense because the one I just read was was played on I believe that was viola and cello. Mm-hmm. So Djupstrom, the guy that actually composed it, was not in on that one. Because he was doing all piano stuff.
Right.
one of the ladies in the audience was familiar with this piece, and she said that it was originally done for saxophone and cello.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
maybe that
would be a cool combo.
And so I think maybe that's another reason why he wanted to compose it, and so he can composing it for viola.
Right. Like one thing I learned while I was in where was I? When I was in Prague with my parents a few weeks ago, we visited the Palace in Prague, and they have original scores of music by Mozart, by Beethoven, and by Haydn. And Mozart rewrote, I believe it was Handel's Messiah to make it sound more classical sounding. It's kind of similar, yeah?
I guess as it was confusing to me because I always thought, you spent all this time becoming a composer. Like, I feel like now is your time to make something brand new. And I'm sure he does that as well. I'm sure. Actually, I know he's done that.
Right.
But,
we both do.
But I guess you do both. You because obviously just about every, especially composer, has heavy influences and heavy people that really they focused on when they were in school or when they were younger, or who they really enjoyed. And so maybe there's two different sides to enjoying the composing, where making your own stuff completely from scratch, or taking stuff that you've loved and somehow adapting it, or inspired by.
Can I make like a comparison for you? I think of it kind of like when you have a really famous musician who already has a lot of their own great music, yet when they play a concert, they still do a cover song. I think it's kind of the same thing. I think people like to share what inspires them, what they enjoy. And sometimes there's nothing better than, taking something. For me, it would be like taking a Jimi Hendrix song and maybe trying to make my own version of it as a guitarist. For me, that's like one of the coolest things I can think of in terms of guitar. Or taking like a classical guitar piece by one of my favorite composers, Francisco Tárrega, and doing that. So I totally see where the composers are coming from, but I also know what you mean when you say the whole point of composing is also to make new music, but sometimes it's nice to revamp some of the old stuff too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the classical music version of a remix. A little bit.
Whoa, holy shit. Sorry,
What?
I'm just looking at my soundboard. I lost my Hamhorn.
Uh-oh.
They updated it, and now my Hamhorn's gone. Oh, that's a shame. All right. Well, I'll take care of that later.
Right. No Hamhorn, no podcast episode, amigo. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyway. So then we were talking about now I got to come back to Dvorak.
Dvorak, you're getting there.
Dvorak.
There you
that
go.
was,
Perfect.
and so after they played those first two pieces the first three, the Bartok and the two of his pieces, that was about an hour and a half, and then they took about a 15-minute break, and then they came back and they did this 45-minute Dvorak piece, and I was like in a trance listening to this. It was amazing.
Oh, nice.
And I
That's
wish
awesome.
I remember what it was, because they didn't
have a program?
They didn't have a program. This is the first one I've been to where they didn't have a program. And then I went to his website, and he has all of his events, and he had this event listed. But he named his pieces, and then he said an assortment of pieces from Bartok and Dvorak.
That's normal. That's normal.
And
you
so-
gotta email one of those guys and be like, "Yo,
I kind of
what
want
was
to. They
that
live in Philadelphia.
Dvorak?"
He lives in Philadelphia. The composer. I considered asking him to come on the pod.
Oh, that would be dope.
I might do that. I shouldn't have brought this up on the podcast. I forgot we were recording.
Oh,
for a
that would
second.
be so. That's a
not
good
mean to bring this
sign.
up on the podcast,
That's a
but
good sign. You could always edit that out later.
I'm not gonna edit that.
But that's awesome. I mean, I would also be curious which Dvorak piece he picked to play, because I'd love to hear it too.
The cellist is the one that introduced this, and he was he said this was one of his all-time favorite pieces, and he said he thinks it's also one of Dvorak's all-time best, because it was the most unique, and it was the most representative of the kind of folk Ukrainian roots and not was it Ukrainian? Did I say was that wrong? Not
You said
Ukrainian.
Ukrainian.
Yeah, but
Czech?
is that wrong? It might
He's
be
Czech.
Okay. I think it's okay, whatever. But
But it doesn't mean he couldn't have used,
That's true.
Ukrainian or Hungarian or whatever.
and he said that it was even though he had a lot of great classical pieces, he liked that this was maybe one of his most unique and most personal pieces. I think is what he said. I'm trying to remember what he said.
Nice. I can tell you, after having a bunch of cellists as friends and a couple of my former students as well, Dvorak is, I think it's safe to say, fairly loved and highly accepted with most cellists.
I mean,
he has
not
a lot
only-
of amazing cello music.
Well, not only when he was explaining it could you see that that he really loved this guy, but when he was playing, like you could see it in his playing that this guy.
Oh,
like,
that's my favorite.
you could just tell
That's
that
my favorite.
this guy's giving it. Like
Right.
he had the head going.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I was like, this guy definitely is, and like I just love that. It's like, yeah, I want to see someone playing something that they're this passionate about, because then you're going to get a good performance. They're not going to half-ass something they're in love with.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so it was a great show, and it was about 2 hours, and then I went home, and it was great. But as I was leaving, and actually as I got there, a couple times during that show, I was complimented, and one of the times was by a guy, and as I was walking out, he said, "Oh, I love that blazer. I have one just like it. I got it in Vienna."
What? Oh, wow.
Guess what I was wearing?
What were you
Guess
wearing?
what I was wearing?
Oh, was it one
Yeah.
of my old?
You got me that. You
nice.
got me that old Viennese Blazer, and I was
That's
like,
right.
oh, it's funny that you say that. That's exactly where this one came from.
Did you take a picture of you in the blazer?
I did not. My piano teacher complimented me on it like dude. Every time I've worn that thing, and I don't wear it often.
It's straight fire, dude. I love that. Oh man,
I don't wear it
I almost
often.
brought one with me here.
I don't wear it often, but I'm going to wear it more because every time I wear it, I get compliments on it, like multiple compliments on it.
You should wear it to work one day and see what people say.
I really should. And it's great. I love it. But yeah,
you do realize after this now you need to take a picture in that blazer.
yeah, but I don't even have a floor to ceiling mirror in my place.
Not right now. Just
Okay.
at some point. I don't know. Sneak into a bathroom somewhere.
Hey, I hate to do this, but I need to take off my sweater. I am sweating in my little
Go
Harry
for
Potter
it. Go
closet.
for it. Well, while you're taking your sweater off, I'll fill in the listeners with what's been going on. I was also lucky to have a interesting cultural weekend this weekend. I had a choir concert today.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You're not the only one getting your music and your culture on this weekend. We had a concert with the choir I sing with, and we sang a couple pieces in Italian, a couple pieces in Latin, and a couple pieces in Czech. And one of the Czech pieces was also by Dvorak,
Oh, nice.
which was pretty good.
Which one was it? Do you remember? I mean, of course.
No,
you do.
I'd have to pull out my choir book.
Okay.
With all my sheet music. But it was funny though because all the Czech folk songs I had never sang before. So we had a rehearsal today at 3. I went to rehearsal, sang these songs once. Then we had a little break before the concert. The concert started at what time did the concert start at 5? Yeah,
Okay.
concert started at 5. We sang for about 40 minutes, and that was it. But also in between the songs, we have about 80 or 90 pieces in our books of different repertoire, right? And I didn't have enough time to flip through the pieces. So thankfully, our choir director, the one who conducts the choir, she'll sing the words. So I was basically just copying whatever sounds I thought
Why are
she
you up
was
there?
making.
You are disrespecting these people's choir.
Thankfully, I'm a bass, so I was in the very back and nobody could see me.
Well,
And most of the songs, the Italian songs and the Latin songs, I all have memorized.
I do find it interesting that you're okay. I just find it so interesting that you're in this choir in general.
It's a great way to learn Czech, and I go with my mentor, and she's an amazing woman.
Right. So it's
I
a
won't
good way
say
for you
she's
guys
like
to,
a mom to me, but she's like an aunt, I would say.
Okay. All right.
So, but
She
it was
doesn't get
it was
full
good.
mom status. That's cool.
I mean, she's an amazing woman, but I would feel weird, I guess, calling her like my mom.
Talk that calf out of that heifer.
So yeah, but it was really great, and I got to talk to some of my colleagues after the concert, and they asked me how it was to sing in Czech, and I told them very difficult, but I think it has helped my pronunciation, which we'll get to later this episode as well.
Okay,
but little teaser for all of our listeners out there. But yeah, so I have to ask you, Jared, though. Let's go back to this Velvet. I always keep wanting to say Velvet Cake concert series, but I know there was no Velvet Cake there.
Cake.
So what was your favorite piece?
Dvorak, for sure. Dude,
Okay.
I was enthralled. It's rare, and I'm not a big. I enjoy going to these concerts, and I enjoy culturing myself. And this is a great venue to do it, where it's in someone's house. It's not like, and it's $30, but it's not like, it's a lot better to me than like going to say some concert hall or something like that.
Right.
And
Plus, I'm assuming a lot of that goes straight to the musicians, doesn't it?
Probably, yeah. Because these people are for sure, in the sense that they definitely get paid, because he just hires these people. And I think
Right.
this guy might actually be the composer. Jupstrom might actually be the guy that owns the house. He's a pianist. It might be his composing teacher, I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think.
Nice.
I can't get out of the back of my head that I said that. So I actually got to email this guy.
Right.
Because I was gonna do it before we started recording, but I got nervous. I was like, "Nah, I'm not gonna do it." And I was like, "Well, now I gotta do it."
Right.
So yeah, that was probably my favorite. Some of his I struggle to enjoy the duets with just violin and cello, or
Okay.
viola and cello. Like it
And
seems
why
to be
is
missing.
that?
It just seems to be missing something. It seems to lack any like sort of, at least the pieces I was hearing, lacks any sort of like rhythm to it. Does that make any sense?
Okay. I mean, sure, it depends on the piece, but sure. Or maybe does it just seem like it's just not full enough. It's not thick
Right.
enough or deep enough.
And yes, it doesn't seem like it's not. It definitely seems like it's missing something, and it also seems like maybe just because it also seems like, and maybe this is just the pieces I heard, and maybe this is also slightly going to be a criticism on this guy's pieces, but some of them felt like they just like it lacked, like I couldn't tell if they were going somewhere,
Right.
And so it more just kind of sound like, if it doesn't seem like it's going somewhere, it almost just starts sounding like noise to me.
That's fair.
And
That's fair. I think the other thing is, too, it's amazing how much depth and also rhythm a piano can add.
Yes, and it's especially since there's so much range on the piano.
Right.
And it can do so, and it can fill in so many different roles, from melodies to a bass line to like a solid
Right.
bass line. And so
Right.
I think it definitely, yeah, I think you're right. It adds so much.
I think the other thing is, too, is that when you start adding instruments, I think our automatic expectation is to have a thicker, fuller sound, right? Mm-hmm. But when you have something like cello and viola, or cello and violin, although that's also a wide range, I think our ears or our minds kind of expects a bit more from it, right? Which, on the other hand, if I listen to just purely like cello music or classical guitar music or piano, if it's an instrument by itself, I don't think we have the same sonic expectations as we would with hearing duets or a trio or a quartet.
Right. I wondered if some of it had to do with the fact that his pieces were, quote unquote, contemporary classical music. So maybe
Right.
I thought maybe it's like, well, maybe this is just like a style of classical music that I'm not used to,
Right.
or something.
And we'll
I
get
didn't
into
know.
that later.
I don't know.
We'll get into that later. We can talk about it.
Okay.
But
I
well,
loved it.
I'm
It
glad
was
you had
great.
a good time, and
Yeah,
I'm
me
glad
too.
you got exposed to Dvorak. He's one of my favorites, and I think here in the Czech Republic he is really highly celebrated, and a lot of Czechs definitely love his music.
Yeah,
And
I
there's
was
actually a really
blown
cool
away.
theater called the Dvorak Divadlo, Dvorak Theatre. So
okay.
yeah, so when you come visit, we'll have to nerd out on some more Dvorak. That's
All right.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
Well, buddy, I think it's time to
Spread a little love.
That's right. That's right. So how about you get us started today, Jared?
All right. Well, I have a harrowing tale of redemption by a guy named oh geez, my scrolly thing's not working. The thing, no, it's just I have like two mouses. That's really what it was. So a guy named Maurice Rucker was this is a story. So let me give me a second to take you.
Take your time. Take us down that road, Jared.
So Maurice Rucker, he used to work at. I'm trying to see if I can find the exact year. For now, it doesn't matter. If I find it, I'll let you know. This years ago, he worked at a Home Depot for 10 years, and he had a run-in with an employee that
Customer. Right?
Excuse me. Thank you. A customer who was in Rucker's line in the garden center, and I don't know how it started, but the employee was started insulting Rucker, calling him slow, and said that he owed his job to Donald Trump, and hit him with an additional string of ugly insults. You're from the ghetto, was one of those insults that the guy said. Rucker, who is black, if you couldn't have guessed already, eventually left his booth, got in the man's face, and told him to leave the store. And then 5 days later, after that, Rucker was fired. So I can only imagine that the dude probably complained to Home Depot, say, you got this employee who treated me, who was very rude to me, and probably left all that beginning of that other stuff.
Right.
And so he was just fired out of the blue, and a spokesperson at the corporate for Home Depot said the company was appalled by the customer's behavior, but defended the firing because Rucker's violated protocol. Protocol. We have a zero tolerance.
Right.
And so Rucker, who had worked there for 10 years, was let go, and he got let go essentially for defending himself. And defending himself in the simplest of ways, just by asking a rude employee to leave the store.
Rude customer.
Why do I keep doing that?
I don't know.
A rude customer to leave the store. And I don't know how loud or whatever he said it, but still, it's like, yeah. Anyway, so people obviously are not in this age. Everyone hears about everything. And so people heard about this, and they were standing up for him on the internet, and people were appalled at Home Depot, and so Home Depot, after all the backlash, said like, oh no, hey Rucker, we'll give you your job back, but Rucker said no, which good for him for having some self-respect and pride. It's like, oh,
and a backbone.
It's like, just because now that you guys are embarrassed, it's like, no, I'm not gonna. And so Rucker is also a visual artist and a lead singer for a country rock soul band called Moz. We should have made him the song of the pod.
Right.
And was widely known before a column ran. And so blah 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 blah. He got a long story short. He's 61, and he got a call from Jesus Christ, this story is so long. He got a call from someone at the Albany County Executive's office named Daniel McCoy, who offered him a position in the probation department, and that's the job that Rucker ultimately took. So shout out to Rucker for having the backbone to stand his ground on what he believes in. Then also shout out to sorry, I don't have my Hamhorn once again. It's been taken away from me. There we go. That's perfect. And what happens if I click this one?
Holiday party.
No, that's stupid.
What is that?
That's usually where my or this one. This is
Time for the Christmas beats.
Yeah, see, they put like Christmas ones in. That's the dumb thing. It's
lame,
like, why would you do
lame.
this? Christmas, like, first of all, anyway.
Christmas is over.
I know, but now I have to like go find. Anyway, so
You're good.
Yours was more than good enough, and so shout out to the for the other guy, Daniel McCoy, for offering him that position. That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think
And it's better than what he had before. So
right, and I think the other thing is too, I love this story because big ups for it was Ruckers, right?
Maurice Ruckers.
Yeah, Ruckers. Thank you for
Rucker,
standing up
just
for
Rucker.
himself. Or
No
Rucker,
S.
sorry, for standing up for himself and eventually getting a job that I hope he deserves.
Yeah.
There's, in my opinion, it's 2019. People, we don't have time or energy for any of this hatred and racism anymore.
I also don't think a lot of people realize how often like people of any race just let any usually non-white race just let racism go. Just like how often racism like you have to decide is this little
Is it worth it?
Is like this that was racist, but it's a small bit of racism. Is it worth it for me to bring that up, or do I just let it go? And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. When they hear racism, they think someone just being yelled the N-word to their face or something like that.
Right.
And it's like, no, there's a lot of like smaller stuff where people just have to decide, is this worth me mentioning, or am I just going to have to let this person go and they're never even going to realize what they did was racist? And that's how racism continues.
Honestly, man, I think it might be helpful for a lot of people if we did like a Racism 101 episode.
Oh, man, that would be such a long episode. We'd have
It would be. It's all right. We can do a couple episodes about it. But I think it's important because I think there's a lot of white people out there that truly want to be an ally. I would say I'm definitely one of them. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know. You can do things with the best intentions and still it comes off racist.
Well, and I think that's also a thing that is racist to white people is such a like offensive word that like
that's probably the only way you can offend a white person.
It's hard to hear. It's hard. I at least from what I've experienced, it's hard for a white person to hear someone tell them that was racist without them also hearing someone being like, "Hey, you're a racist." And I think there's a difference between saying that was racist and you're a racist. And I think that
for sure,
part of it is being able to accept someone telling you that was racist and just be like, "Oh, okay," and then move on and take it and be like, "Oh, okay, now I know." And I think that in itself is a hard thing to breach because as soon as you hear that was racist, I think a lot of white people hear you're a racist. And it's just like it's just this all or nothing switch where it's that's not how it works.
Right.
What the hell were we talking about? Oh yeah, that's right, Maurice Rucker.
Yeah.
I thought we were still talking about the Red Velvet Hall concert. I was like, how did this start?
No, not at all. Or at least I was like a different.
I think that would be useful because I hear that a lot. I like it. That annoys me as a podcast listener a lot. Like especially when I hear people talk about like white privilege too. Because that's another thing that I think is greatly misunderstood. Because as soon as someone hears white privilege, they think, oh, I wasn't grown rich. I had to struggle. My parents were abusive to me. It's like it doesn't mean that you got pulled over. Then the cop's like, oh, sorry, you're white. Please, like that's not what that means. And it's almost kind of
people
insulting.
Don't understand that.
I almost kind of find it insulting. It's like you actually think that's what people are saying. They're like we just assume that everyone had the world handed to them because they're white or something. It's like that's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
See, this is why I'm scared to do that episode because you just mentioned it and
we got to do it now though. I think it would be a great one to do.
Okay.
But yeah. All right. Well, I have a shout out. I would like to give. Do you happen to know who Lauren Underwood is, Jared?
Singer?
Nope.
Sounds like a country singer.
Not Carrie Underwood.
Okay.
Carrie Underwood's a singer.
Oh.
Lauren Underwood is the youngest black woman to serve in Congress.
Oh,
she is a 32-year-old registered nurse and is one of 3 Democrats from Illinois who was sworn into the House on Thursday. So a big shout out to you.
That is awesome.
Lauren Underwood.
Yes,
I got your back, Jared. Don't you worry.
Thank you very much.
And I would also like to give a shout out to all of the women that have been sworn in to the House. This is actually, I believe, the highest number of women we have had in the U.S. government. And a lot of women come from different minority backgrounds, which I think is also amazing. We need better representation in our politics. I am sick of all these old-ass rich white dudes running the country to the ground. We need some young, fresh faces that represent all of the different and beautiful people of the United States. So also big shout out to all of you.
Spread a little love.
That's right. We really hope you can do things and change things for the better. So thanks again.
For sure. And speaking of having all these young, diverse people in our House and Congress and Senate, Senator, I mean, this is not one of them, but this is a good thing that's happening. This is one of those rich white dudes you're talking about. But this is still a good thing that's happening. Governor Jay Inslee, who is the governor of Washington, will pardon anyone who has an otherwise clean criminal record, but has a sole conviction as an adult for misdemeanor possession of marijuana. And so anyone who has been convicted of a misdemeanor possession of marijuana between January 1st, 1998 and December 5th, 2012, will have that removed from your record completely, so that will have never existed. And this needs to start happening. I mean, it's great that that marijuana is being legalized in states and people aren't going to prison for minuscule amounts of weed that they have, and it's like the only reason, like, and this it's ridiculous that the government can just make people criminals like that.
Right.
But then and so it's great that that's being legal. But then it's hard for me to then look at all these other states that are legalizing it, then simultaneously have people in jail for that crime that's now no longer a crime. And it's like, okay, well, then now that it's legal, let all those people go that you're now admitting are in jail for nothing.
Right.
And so I love that. And I think that's going to be happening more. It should. And so I'm glad that it's happening in
100%.
Washington. Shout out to Governor Jay Inslee.
All right, Jared. Well, I have 2 shout-outs. I got a 2-for-1 special to end our shout-outs this episode. I have 2 shout-outs for Germany. And there are 2 interesting things that I have found out about Germany. Germany has unveiled a 5-point plan to reduce plastic waste. So they are hoping to get, I believe, up to 63% recycled. I think right now it's somewhere around the 30%
Even
of all their things. That's still great.
I wonder how much
Don't
we
get me wrong.
recycle in America.
Oh, it'd be bad. I'm sure it's bad. But anyways, I think that's great that they're trying to up the reduction of plastic waste and other types of waste.
For sure.
I think people in our generation and younger are starting to understand that if we don't make some serious changes, our children or maybe grandchildren might not have a world to live in. Which is a really scary thought. And we could do something about it if people cared more.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to. It's almost the same reason why people don't go to the doctor more often. It's like, well, I'm fine now, and it's like, yeah,
Right.
but you don't realize that there's a tumor growing in you.
Exactly.
You just like you're fine now, but like it's like whatever, or that you've been eating Pop-Tarts every day for the past 15 years. That's gonna catch up to you eventually, and you might be
Right.
fine now because you're 25 and in the prime of your life, but like. If you keep going on that way, it'll catch up to you. And that's the same thing with the Earth. It's like, yeah, it's fine, but yeah, like we can't see like how rapidly it's like it's almost like watching someone age faster. It's like, oh, this person's only 30, you look 62.
Right. Exactly. And the other shout out I have for Germany is, and this will not make our current president very happy, but renewables have overtaken coal as Germany's main energy source.
Well, good, because we're bringing coal back here in America. More for us.
Oh, God. Honestly, though, I think if Germany can do it, why can't the United States? Obviously, the country's a lot bigger, but I also think...
Nah, that doesn't
if
matter.
we had-
You're right, but
if-
that doesn't matter.
What?
That the country's a lot bigger. It's all about willingness, to me at least.
I agree. It's about willingness and it's about money.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at the sustainability and if you look into the future, I would assume that renewable energy is going to provide a lot more in terms of jobs in the future than if we continue using the older methods. But I'm no expert on that, so I'm not going to say anymore. All I want to say is shout out to Germany for being nice and green and keeping
Yeah.
up the good work.
For sure, for sure.
Hut ab for Deutschland. Hats off to Germany.
Okay. I've never heard that before. I mean, it makes sense, but I've just never heard it before. And now to celebrate all this wonderful
Spread a little love.
that's been going on here, I got a Beer of the Pod review.
I'm excited.
Keeping it local, but at least off of my street this time.
That's good.
This one is, I love this can, by the way. It's a very cool looking can.
Up and out.
Yep. It's by 2SP.
Hazy IPA.
It's a hazy IPA by 2SP called Up and Out. And it comes in this great looking orange can. And it's a 6% beer. And it's from a city called, let me check. Ashton, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes away from Philadelphia.
Okay.
And
I'm just curious. This isn't related to the beer at all, but how far are you from Scranton?
I don't know. I could tell you right now.
That's a question because as you know, Jared, I don't know if our listeners know, but I'm a huge Office fan.
I am 2 hours south of Scranton.
Okay. And how far? And you're 30 minutes away from what was it? Ashton?
Aston, without the
Aston.
H.
Yep.
Yep. And so this is according to 2SP, which I cannot figure out. I tried my darndest to figure out what 2SP stood for, but I could not find it. Regardless, they claim that this is a very juicy IPA. Juicy.
All right.
It's got a big aroma, moderately bitter, and is earthy with notes of stone fruit, berry, and citrus.
I don't even know what stone fruit is, but caught my attention nonetheless.
Stone fruit is different than that star fruit, I believe, isn't it?
I would think so.
Stone fruit. So, what? I typed in stone fruit. Stone fruit is a fruit with flesh or pulp enclosing a stone. Oh, like a plum or peach, plum, or cherry. You know what a stone fruit is.
Oh, okay.
That's just a fancy word for, I never knew that
Learning
either.
something new. All right.
That was exciting. So yeah, that's what it is. And I don't really have a good glass for this, but I at least want to see some of the color. So I'm gonna pour it in this glass.
Okay. I want to see some of that color as well. I don't know if it's like beer snobbish to say, but I feel like the color of a beer to me definitely gives it something, an extra dimension to just the taste.
I don't think that's a snobbish thing to say.
No? All right.
I think anyone that enjoys any sort of beverage would probably say that.
Would you say that's hazy, Jared?
I'd say that's hazy. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so. All right, I'm going to give it a sip. Sorry, I'm like amazed by it. Ooh. Citrusy blast.
You got that IPA haze all in your brain.
It is juicy, that's for sure.
Okay.
So it's very fruity.
You said citrusy?
I said taste. It is citrusy, but I can specifically taste that stone fruit. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad they said stone fruit because I couldn't tell you if it's a peach or a plum I'm tasting.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Or a nectarine.
What about a cherry?
Nah, no, it's not really cherry. I mean, cherries taste pretty different than any of those other ones.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Peaches and plums and nectarines are at least in the same sort of family to me of taste.
Right.
But a cherry is something totally different as far as taste goes. But
I'd agree.
It is like a blast of fruit. Like, they're not even kidding when they say juicy.
Okay. So maybe they need a different name than hazy IPA.
It's similar, actually, to me to the, do you remember, this whole Beer of the Pod review thing started many moons ago with the Tonewood series.
Yep.
This kind of reminds me of the improv? Yes. Good memory.
All right.
Heskey Cluck.
Yes, it kind of reminds me of the improv. And it has that blast. And this is actually way less alcohol, or not way less, but the improv was 8%, this is 6%, but it still has a very similar taste to me. Okay. And except the improv did not have that stone fruit.
So do you think the stone fruit is an added plus, or you could live without it?
The stone fruit makes me want to drink this in outside in the less alcohol. The mix of stone fruit and less alcohol makes this better suited for a summertime beer than the Improv. The Improv, which was delicious, I loved it, but it was a little too strong, and this juiciness. This is definitely a juicier, which is now a term I guess I'm going to use to describe beers. This is a juicier beer
I
than
like it.
the Improv. So I think that this, I'm not going to say it's better, because I think I would prefer the Improv just for if I were trying to have, sorry, I knocked my table. If I was trying to find a beer for myself, I'd probably choose the Improv, but if I were specifically I'm going over to my friend's house to hang out on the beach or their backyard in the sun on the patch, on the Portillo, porch patio, not patch Portillo.
How juicy is that beer, Jared? It seems like it's maybe a little too juicy. What would you give it on the juicy scale?
I'd give it a the juicy scale. I don't know.
10 out of 10?
Nah, I'd give it an 8. I'd give it an 8.
8? So would Juicy J approve of this?
Oh yeah, Juicy J would. Yeah. But I'd say so for sure.
All right.
But it's too cheap for him. Isn't he the one that does those rich shit show?
Probably. I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. That's a good question. But yeah. But overall, you're a fan.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Nice.
And I like the can a lot too. I like the simplicity and the orange. The orange is very fitting for the sort of flavor it delivers.
So you'd say thumbs up for this beer then, Jared?
Thumbs up for this beer. Hell yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about you doing my job, but I also appreciate that you do have the Hamhorn when I did not come
Teamwork
through.
makes a dream work, you know?
Ugh, yeah.
Well, Jared, do you, it was just beer o'clock, but I think it might be time. Ooh. Oh, perfect timing.
It is.
Perfect timing.
For those of you that don't know, what you're listening to now is the Untranslatable Owl. No, we did not take this from somewhere. I did not find this online. Chad took his microphone and stuck it up to a clock in his home.
A German cuckoo clock.
A German cuckoo clock, and that is legitimate untranslatable owl right there. And I'm proud of you. I feel like I could, this was early on in the podcast. This is maybe the second episode. I feel like I could never get you to do this now. Probably not.
Probably not. But see, here's the funny thing about the untranslatable. Here's a little insight for all of our listeners. I had forgotten about it, and then as it went off, I was like, "Oh shit, I need to record this for Jared." And so I had to wait another hour.
And I told
set
you,
an alarm.
By the way.
Right.
I told you that you could just
change
the clock.
Right.
No,
but it's a really old one, and the way you have to change it, they're like these metal chains, and I wasn't
I even set reminders 10 minutes before I knew it was going to go off, because that's how it even came. Because when you were recording at home, it kept interrupting our podcast.
Yep.
And so I was like, this is the Untranslatable Owl. And so anyway,
good times.
I don't even think it's an owl.
Good times.
But,
probably not, but it is now, so that's all that matters.
So can I go first?
Absolutely, go for it.
My first one's Thai, and it is Kratan Dang Pra Rung.
Which means?
And it means spittoon in a royal hall.
So is this like a rags to riches person or somebody who just doesn't belong?
Neither.
Okay. Give me one of your world-class examples.
So,
because it sounds like spittoon in a royal hall would be like something that doesn't fit, or something that sticks out like a sore thumb.
I was excited for my new job. I was told that I was going to have all these great opportunities, but turns out I get there and everyone just tells me what to do and orders me around. I'm just the spittoon in a royal hall.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I kind of told you what the definition is in there. That was a terrible example because I gave you the answer. But yeah, it's someone who's just
like a pushover, kind of.
Yeah, essentially, it's just someone who's constantly ordered around to do stuff for other people.
Okay.
So yeah, it could be a pushover as well. And so, it's just like at the Royal Hall, it's just the person that you spit on or get to do all your bidding.
Court jester or whoever.
I think the jester might be higher than this person.
Could be. That's
the
true.
The jester entertains. This person just goes and gets stuff.
Right. Okay. So I have, somehow there's I can still find them. I got some Czech ones. And both of these are idioms that are related to the word ear. So here we go. Ma za ushima, which means, ushima, which means he has behind the ears. What do you think
mean,
this means,
he's
Sherry?
hiding something?
Nope.
Got a secret or okay?
Nope, no secrets.
It was super wise, very
Wow, how did you get that?
I have things behind the ears. That's
I guess so. Maza ushima is when someone's very clever and cunning, or I would say also wise. And what's funny is, so they say he has behind the ears. I'm assuming you could also say she has behind the ears. Ladies can definitely be clever and cunning as well. What's funny though is, we Czechs don't even know like what it is you are supposed to have behind your ears to make you extremely smart. Is not clear though. Our forefathers may have meant the brain, but it's not really clear where the idiom comes from.
I'll say this. I can barely even pay attention to what you're saying right now because perfectly in frame over your your left shoulder is clever branded cereal. And so when you're talking about being clever or cunning, all I see is just clever written. I don't even see the cereal. I don't even see the cereal box. Literally, when you're all I saw was clever, and you're just talking about being clever, and it's just right there, and that's all I could see. It was almost distracting how that's all I could see. I was like, wow. Speaking of, this is perfectly placed. My next one is another Yoruba one. There was because there was just a long list of them that I found a couple weeks ago. So maybe I'll sprinkle some of those in from time to time. And this one is anpe gibena I akoko unyoju.
Which means?
I'm sorry to all of my Yoruba speakers. I'm so sorry. Please email Untraceable Podcast at gmail.com and tell me how to actually say that. So it actually means a sculpture is summoned and the woodpecker shows up.
Say that one more time.
A sculptor is summoned and the woodpecker shows up.
Is that like when you ask somebody to do something and then like someone who's kind of a know-it-all will come in and no?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah? All right.
Yes, that's exactly it. Keep going.
All right. And so it would be like if like Jared came to me with like wanted to ask me a question about music, and then like maybe one of our friends who's like a big music nerd like and kind
corrected
of a know-it-all
you.
would come up and yeah. Okay. All right, I'm gonna give myself a little.
No, that's perfect. The meaning that on the website said never think too highly of yourself. So
okay.
that's you were on the right.
I'm
sorry for throwing you off and shaking my head. I thought you were going somewhere else with it at first.
You're good. All right, Jared. As I mentioned, my second one also has to do with ears, and it is zapish si toza uji. Ushi. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing that. Zapish si toza ushi. Or write it behind your ears. What do you think that could mean, Jared?
Keep it to yourself to
Nope.
keep a secret. Okay.
Nope. See, Jared, this is something you would definitely tell me.
Oh, to make sure you don't forget to do something.
That's right. Write it behind your ears means don't forget it, remember it well.
I want all the listeners to take note of how quickly I understood that.
Right. So, Jared, all you have to say is zapish si to za uji.
Okay.
Ushi. I keep mispronouncing
I'm just going to say write it behind your ears. I'm going to keep that one in mind.
There you
Write
go.
it behind your ears to
no.
post your beer the pod picture.
Exactly. Nice. Do you have any more, Jared?
Yeah, I have one more.
Perfect.
I mean, we've been going long, but that's okay, I guess. Do you have anywhere to be?
I got to be here recording the Untranslatable podcast, so we are good.
My next one is Igbo. Have you heard of Igbo before?
I have not.
It's a smaller language, but I don't think it is a smaller language. I take that back. But it's spoken in central and southeastern Nigeria. And my untranslatable is ka ana achu aja ka ikpe in ama nidi mu'uo. And literally it means let's keep sacrificing, let the gods take the blame.
So is this like, oh, who cares what we do? Somebody else will clean it up, or no?
No. Let's keep sacrificing, let the gods take the blame. And keep in mind, these are religious people.
Right. Let's keep sacrifice. Well, doesn't this just mean like it doesn't really matter what we do, we'll just blame it on whatever?
Yeah, dude, give yourself a Hamhorn.
All right. I like it. All right.
It essentially means, I'd say yes, but it essentially means to do your part to avoid the blame. So it's like, listen, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do.
That. Right.
Like, this is what I'm told to do, and you don't blame me for doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And
I like that.
I found a couple of these Igbo untranslatables that were like this, that were essentially saying that, like, and I to the point where I had to Google it to see, like, are the Igbo people like atheists?
Right.
Because this almost seems like a untranslatable that someone that doesn't believe in religion would use, where it's like all these people just keep doing things and like they don't take any of the blame. They just pass the blame on to Jesus or God or whatever. Right. And I just found it interesting that they had all those, that they're kind of owning up to, like, listen, we're just doing what we're told to do.
I'd like to hear more of those. So bring some more the next couple episodes. Sure. Those are cool.
Yeah, there was I found a long list of those.
It's a cool sounding language. I think that's one of my favorite things about learning languages. But one of the most difficult things with learning any new language, and a thing I think you and I have dealt with a lot with this podcast, is trying to pronounce things correctly. It's not easy.
There are some languages that I kind of avoid because of that, like Polish.
Oh, me too,
example.
100%. There are quite a few languages I avoid, but I think in the future, after this episode, we'll have the skill set to not avoid these languages.
Maybe.
So I'd like to start our main segment today, Jared, with some pronunciation tips for you, for myself, and also for all of our wonderful listeners out there. And the first tip that I would like to give, which this almost goes without saying, but I think a lot of people are so excited to learn a foreign language that they might kind of skip this or not look at it for what it's worth. And that is, you really need to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't, in certain languages, there are sounds that are very similar. And if you don't hear the difference between those sounds, how can you expect yourself to produce the different sounds with your own mouth if you aren't hearing them with your ears?
Right. Yes. So I have a question for you as a teacher of both German and English.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you've experienced words in both languages. It's teaching a variety of cultures and ethnicities and backgrounds of countries. Mm-hmm. And you've seen words that people struggle to pronounce. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to teach pronunciation?
100%.
And so do you, as a language teacher, have like techniques that you just know in the back of your head to teach someone to say specific words?
100%.
Because sometimes I wonder, is it just because, we've talked about in the past that people's tongues and mouths, that's a muscle that grows based off of what language you learn. Mm-hmm. Your mouth adapts to the sounds and accents of that language, making it easy for you to say things that are hard for other people to say because they've learned other languages. Mm-hmm. And obviously we can learn other accents and languages and stuff like that if that aren't our native one. But sometimes even I wonder with certain words, it's like, is it just impossible for me to learn this because my mouth has never really even been able to attempted this before now?
Well, I can tell you, as someone who has worked for a couple of years now as a speaking and listening teacher specifically, especially for English, you can learn it. The trick is, one, you need to be patient. Mm-hmm. 2, you really need to develop your ear. And 3, I know this is going to sound corny, but you really have to watch native speakers' mouths and their tongues, how they pronounce the words.
It doesn't sound corny. It sounds gross.
Okay, fair enough. But the nice thing is now with the internet, there are a lot of videos where it's like a diagram. So it's not as gross as looking at someone's actual mouth. You see a diagram, right? Like the stereotype is with a lot of students from Asia, they don't pronounce their L's and their R's correctly. At least the way we would.
Christmas Story made fun of that.
In the United States. Exactly. I think there's a lot of people who make fun of it. And the thing is, I have taught students from China and Japan how to correctly pronounce L's and R's. And the main trick is when you're learning any foreign language, you need to extremely over-exaggerate the way you make the sound because your mouth isn't used to, your mouth and your tongue aren't used to producing sounds in that specific way. So if you, like when I would teach a couple of my students from China and Japan how to pronounce L, I would pick words. Eventually, I would start with words with just one sound, one L sound, right?
So I would don't start with parallel?
Probably not parallel, no. I think we started with the word real.
Okay.
And I would do it really slowly, and I would, make sure I brushed my teeth really good before class that day.
Floss that day?
Right, exactly. And I would show them, I would say real, and I would obviously over-exaggerate the way I say it so they can watch. And I told them, if your tongue is not touching the back of your teeth, when you say an L sound, you won't make it correctly. And by the end of the semester, I had 3 students who eventually could really pronounce L fairly clearly and didn't have very much difficulty with it as the semester progressed.
I should have known that because I do know that, but I should have known that before I asked that question. Either I'm still glad I asked, but
no, it's a good question to ask.
I went to an international school in Germany, and there were people from all over. So I've seen people from most European countries and both Japan and Korea and China. I said both, but then because at first I thought it was only Japan and Korea, but also China, who have from all these countries, all sorts of Scandinavian countries, all over that South American countries, anyway, all over that can speak English with essentially a like American or British. Yeah, I guess that's what you'd call it.
Yeah,
because it's weird to call it an American accent, but but to the point where you might be able to, if you were talking to them for a short amount of time or like over the phone, not realize that you're talking to someone from a different country.
Right.
And so I guess neutral's the right way to put it because I don't even want to say American because a lot of it was like British influenced, but and obviously these people, some of these people only started learning English, say, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Which, though, for kids is long enough, I think, to develop a pretty good...
This was middle school, so, that means they started when they were, 6 or 7, when they first moved to Germany or something like that. I would
say at that age, you can probably have fairly good pronunciation. The other tips as well, not only listening, and I mentioned as well... over-exaggerating the way you produce certain sounds is very important. But the other thing...
Over-exaggerating, I meant to comment on that, too. That's a similar technique that we're often told in singing as well.
Yep.
Is to over-exaggerate your mouth when you're singing. And I assume that's a similar reason behind both of those.
Right. And it's even like that occasionally with sports and also with playing musical instruments because your body has to... get used to making certain movements, and when you're a beginner, you might be a little more hesitant or timid, and you won't go full force. So if we tell you to over-exaggerate, then we know you're definitely hitting the mark or even going a little bit past it, which is fine. The other tip I wanted to give our listeners out there, and I guess you as well, since we're always in the process of learning languages.
I'm by no means perfect. You've heard me say hundreds of untranslatables.
Right. I mean, I'm also by no means perfect either. And I still have an accent when I speak German. My Austrian roommate loves to remind me of this whenever we speak German. When I saw him last, we spoke only German.
Do you have a Viennese accent?
No, I have an American accent.
Oh, okay. Because I was about to say, is there any? Could you go to Austria?
I mean,
or Germany?
I can fool people into not realizing I'm American. I can do that, which I
Okay.
think is kind of a compliment. But
Well, that's good.
but
Because
one of
people
the
would know
things,
I'm American, even though I could
Right.
have a good conversation, like a fluid conversation. They'd
Right.
still know.
Well, the other tip I wanted to give was in conjunction with listening, it's really important, I think, to do a lot of different types of listening. Listen to songs, watch movies, YouTube videos, news reels, sports highlights, whatever you can get your hands on. And the beauty of today's world with the internet, you can watch almost anything in whatever language. And I would say for the most part, if you're really concentrating on improving your pronunciation and your accent, you need to listen to a lot of native speakers. I think it's good practice to speak with non-native speakers, but you just won't get the same, I guess, nativeness when you watch non-native speakers, unless they're so close to native you can't tell much of a difference. But if I have an accent, if I have an accent, I'm probably not producing the sounds with my mouth the same way a native speaker would.
Right. By far the biggest helper for me, you keep harping on listening to stuff and watching stuff and reading and all that stuff. Well, not reading, I guess. That's not going to help you with the pronunciation part.
Well, I'll get to that in a minute.
But listening to songs, and not only songs, but songs I actually like, is by far the biggest.
And sing along with them.
Exactly. Like I remember finding Seed. That was one of the biggest helpers because
one of my favorites.
Because I had been introduced to a lot of German songs through school and class, but it was never stuff that I actually want to put on my iPod. Seed was the first group, and I was actually probably Peter Fox by himself before Seed. But either way, those were one of the first. That was one of the first groups that I actually was happy to have on my iPod and listen to.
Did I introduce you to Seed?
I know. I think I might have heard of them before that.
Oh man,
I'm sorry.
Love to take credit for that. But yeah, they're fantastic. But I agree. You need to sing along with music. I know it sounds cheesy, but it'll help your pronunciation, which I think has helped my Czech pronunciation. Being in a choir, I feel much more confident to pronounce certain sounds in Czech now. But you mentioned reading, and reading if you look at it just as reading a book. Just as it is there, yes, it will not help your pronunciation. But if you read aloud, I think it will help your pronunciation. It'll grow your vocabulary, and it may even build your confidence. I think for some people, the reason why their pronunciation doesn't improve, and this is another tip, is they're too shy to speak. So do whatever you need to do at home, in the privacy of your own home, to build that confidence to speak, even if it's only a couple sentences here and there.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. That's good.
Baby steps are better than no steps at all. That's for sure. Are there any tips?
Sorry, I just wanted to have a quick pause, so I had that clean.
Oh, nice.
Baby
Nice.
steps are better than no steps at all. I like
That's
that.
right. That should go on a T-shirt right there. Or maybe it's the name of the first Untranslatable podcast book. Who knows? But anyways, do you have any tips though, Jared? I've been talking a lot. Do you have any tips like when you were learning German or French?
I mean, I think it's hard for me to give tips because the way I learned to speak German was like not the normal way. I don't think because like a lot of the way I learned, this is gonna sound weird, but yeah, like I took German classes. I had German teachers and organized German classes, but a lot of ways that I learned pronunciation was by speaking German with people before I really knew what I was doing while I was in Germany. And German speakers or German people making fun of my pronunciation. That happened a lot, where it's like, what? I was like, you said what? Or it's like, oh, I just thought that's how you're supposed to say it. And it's like, no, that happened
But I think that's more.
when
I think that's more
like,
normal than
the first year
think
in.
it is.
Okay, because like the first year living in Germany, that happened all the time, right? Just like, because so many people around you, and like you learn how to understand stuff before you learn how to speak it. So like I was surrounded by it so much. And I heard it so much, and like I would sometimes get a little cocky and try to join in, and like sometimes it would work. Sometimes people would laugh and be like, "What?"
Gotta check yourself. Yeah,
he's like, "Oh, that's not how you say that." He's like, "No." But then usually people would then tell me how to say it. And it's like, okay, well now I know.
And that's a great learning moment. I mentioned a couple of minutes ago how my Austrian roommate likes to point out my accent and my mistakes when I speak German. Sometimes it annoys me a little bit, but a lot of the time I really appreciate it because he is helping me. And he's doing it because he wants to help. He's not doing it because he's, trying to be some facetious asshole. Exactly. No, he's doing it because, and I told him, I think the day I met him or the day I moved into the apartment, please correct me, because a lot of Germans and a lot of Austrians don't correct me because they still know what I mean, which at the end of the day, that's obviously the most important part of it. But
you do that with me when we speak German. Like, you correct me, and it's like, yeah, obviously you knew what I was talking about, but I would like to know if I'm saying it wrong too.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, so a couple other tips though. So let me just try to think and recap. So obviously, number one, you need to listen. Number two, I would say related to, you need to listen to a lot of different types of language, television, movies, music, audiobooks, podcasts, untranslatable podcasts. Exactly. Well, honestly, I have some students here in the Czech Republic that listen to the podcast, and I think it's a great opportunity for them to get a lot of different English that I will not be using usually in the classrooms. So, and shout out to all my students. We really appreciate it.
And you're not going to hold their hand and explain what everything means if we're talking like a normal speed and not teacher speed.
Right, exactly. And teacher talk is definitely a language in itself. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so listen a lot to a lot of different media and materials. Also, make sure to watch a lot of native speakers when they talk, or go online and find some diagram of, I know it sounds gross, but a diagram of a mouth and a tongue and how the sounds are actually produced. And then the next step, I would say, is go in front of a mirror and try to replicate it. And even maybe watch the video as you try to replicate it. After you're starting to understand how your tongue and your mouth and your lips need to produce the sounds, then I would say what's important is to record yourself. Exaggerate it, record yourself, hear it back. I've trained a lot of graduate students at Michigan State University who had come from Taiwan, China, Japan, a couple other different countries as well. And I needed to help them get their pronunciation good enough so they could be teaching assistants in their respective fields. And what I always would tell them is prepare your lecture early, record it. We will listen to it together when we meet, and I will give you some extra advice on how to change your pronunciation for specific words. And at the end of the semester, they told me these sessions where they recorded it, re-listened, really helped them make a lot of advancements in their pronunciation.
Yeah, that's good. Do you do that with Czech? I don't want to. I was gonna say I don't want to.
I should, but I don't.
I was gonna say I don't want to put you on blast, but that's exactly what I wanted to do.
I will tell you what I have been doing with my Czech though. One is I've been lucky where I get a lot of input. I hear a lot of Czech every day, and I'm understanding a lot more and more. I'm really surprised. I've been here 4 months now, a little over 4, and I'm really starting to understand a lot more than initially I thought I could. Because it is a difficult language. It's spoken really fast. I was telling one of my colleagues today, to me, Czech just sounds like one sentence sounds like one really long word to my ear. Still, now I'm picking up individual words, so it breaks it up a little bit in my mind. But one thing I do, this is going to sound really crazy, but one thing I do when I walk to school in the mornings is I will practice the dreaded r.
Okay.
I'll walk to school, I'll be listening to my music, and I'll just be going, r.
That's some sort of nervous tick or something.
Right. But, when I first came here, I couldn't do it because it's a combination of r, rolling your tongue, and making that j sound.
I remember you first explaining to me that was a thing.
Right. And I'm pretty sure, I would almost be willing to bet money that Czech is probably the only language in the world that has that sound. Because Slovak doesn't have it, and they're neighbors. I don't think Polish has it either, and they're also neighbors. We know German doesn't have it, so...
But I wonder what... I'd be interested to hear David's opinion on that.
I'll ask him. I'll ask him, I'll get back to you. But I'm pretty sure. And so when I first moved here, I've been able to roll my R since my sophomore year of high school. And what's funny,
That's hilarious.
I know it's funny that I know this, but if you ask a lot of Czech people, they can usually tell you when their children or when they were children did their first R.
That's
like
hilarious.
one of my colleagues told me. She
it's
told
like
me this
saying
story.
mama or dada.
Right.
Say
Right. Well, one of my colleagues told me she was on the swing, and her grandfather was pushing her on the swing, and he was saying all these Czech words with R in there, right? And then the problem with rolling your R, and I can tell you as someone who learned it, it is possible to learn. The trick is getting your mind, this is going to sound really weird, but getting your mind and your tongue to cooperate. Because what happens is when you roll your R, it's literally your tongue hitting the top of your mouth, and they call it a trill. So it's like a trill, like an instrument where you hit the fingerboard and you release. Hit, release, hit, release. Same thing with the tongue in the roof of your mouth or the top of your mouth. And so what most people do, though, is they try to force it. But the actual trill or the roll itself, you can't force it. If I try to force my tongue going up and down, it won't make that sound. But the trick is you have to kind of get your tongue near the roof of your mouth and you blow air out. And as you blow air out, your tongue should be hitting the roof of your mouth. So when I first learned how to roll my R's...
So you almost have to kind of not think about it too much.
Right, exactly. And that's also what my colleague was telling me. When she was a little girl on the swing, her
I feel like I'm
grandfather was
learning
saying...
to become like a ninja or something.
Right?
Right.
Exactly. Rolling your R ninja, that's right. And so when my friend Robert taught me how to roll my R, so shout out to Robert, but the irony is he taught me how to roll my R on a Spanish word that actually has a single R, which isn't a R, but it's more like a R. It's a quick one, right? But the word, I still remember the word. The word was timbre, which I'm pretty sure is doorbell, I think.
Okay.
And so he was saying something, and I was repeating after him. He was teaching me basic Spanish. Are you looking it up? I'm really curious if that's the right word. Timbre, if you are looking. If not, it's okay.
No, I am. I was hoping you wouldn't notice, but how would you not? My head just turns away.
Right.
As soon as
But anyway, so he was speaking Spanish to me, and I said timbre, and I like rolled it. And the look on his face, it looked like I said a super offensive word in Spanish, and or he just looked super surprised, and he was like, you did it. I was like, did what? He's like, say timbre, and I was like, timbre, and I did it again, and then I kind of realized the way I did it with my mouth, and he gave me a tongue twister in Spanish. I can tell you the first couple words.
Wait, so do you think you did it because you didn't realize what you were supposed to be doing? Like
right,
you weren't
I
even
didn't
thinking
think
about
it too much. Exactly.
Right.
I wasn't thinking if he would have told me put your tongue near the roof of your mouth and make
you
it
would have
hit,
been screwed.
Yeah, it would have been like it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But when he just said timbre and I tried to repeat it, I could do it. And so I literally drove my mom crazy when I was in the car, when I was at home. My friend Robert taught me a tongue twister. I can tell you the first couple of words because I still remember them. It's R con R cigarro, R con R carrin, rapido, and that's where I forget. But it's like R with a car and a cigar, R. But if you ask someone who speaks Spanish fluently, it's really cool to hear it because
if
you
probably
say it
said it
fast
super
enough,
slow. Yeah,
I did. If you hear it fast, it more or less just sounds like R. And so yeah, but rolling my R's have helped me a lot in Czech, obviously in Spanish because there are a lot of Americans who can't. Also in Austrian German, they roll their R's.
And I never do.
Right.
Once
you
again,
you can get them kind of the in your.
I can do the throat one, but I can't do a legit one.
Right. But anyway, so back to the Czech word, I could do the rolled R, but I couldn't make the j with the r sound, right? And so now what's really funny, I told one of my friends in our choir group, when we have a word in whatever song we're singing, whatever piece we're singing that has the j, I stop a word before it so I can correctly pronounce it when I sing.
Oh my God.
Because otherwise you're going to hear everyone else go j and you're going to hear me go r or j.
Right.
And it won't it'll sound a little off. But that is by far, I think, one of the hardest sounds in the Czech language to master.
I mean, that makes totally a lot of sense. And I tried to find more like scientific information, like why is it that we cannot pronounce certain things or certain people can't pronounce certain things? But I didn't, and it's probably for the best of everyone that I didn't find that.
What do you think is the hardest sound for foreigners with English?
Squirrel.
Not word, but sound.
TH.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
TH is a common one that, I mean, the Germans don't have the TH, and from what I've also heard, Hebrew and Arabic doesn't have the TH.
I don't think there's any language that has it, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Because, I mean, another one that's hard for the Germans that's always fun, that I always just find funny, that I remember from living there, is that they confuse the W's and V's.
Yep.
So they'll say V
Volunteer.
word. And it's so funny, too, because for those of you that don't know, the W in German has a V sound.
Like the word vine and wine. And
then the V kind of has an F-ish, like kind of a different form of F almost.
Right.
However, when Germans are speaking English, ones that aren't good enough to know this, I guess, they would say a V word as a W. So they'd say like vowel as wobble or something. Yeah, that's a terrible choice of words to use.
Right.
But that's terrible. But or like vacation as vacation or something like that.
Or I've heard Germans say victory for victory.
And it's just funny because it's like, oh, so that how to do the sound.
Right. What's interesting is
and we know
I've
you can do the
heard,
V sound.
Right. What's interesting though is I have some Czech students who do the same thing.
That's what I wanted to ask you that. What are the Czech mistakes you commonly hear? Because I'm sure there are the
W's and the V's for sure.
Is that the same in their alphabet as it is in the German one like that?
I think so.
See, that's why I wanted to look it up. I wanted to figure out what's like the science behind knowing how to say that V, and it being a part of your standard language. That V.
It's
like a cognitive thing.
It's all about time and practice, really,
right.
And also it's time, practice, and awareness. If you're not aware you're making a mistake, how can you correct it?
That's true. I had friends when I lived in Germany that did that, and I never corrected them.
Right. You don't want to be a jerk. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, TH, W's. Also, I think the biggest giveaway, if we're talking about accents, for any foreigner or anyone learning a foreign language, is vowel sounds. Because the way we say certain vowels in English are different than they say them in Czech or Spanish or German or whatever. I mean, Jared, what do you call that sport that you play on ice with a puck?
Hockey? Ice hockey?
One more time?
Ice hockey.
And what if you were a foreigner, how do you think you would spell hockey?
Oh, like AWK or something like that?
Exactly, right? But there's an O there.
Right.
But then we pronounce O's differently, right?
Yes. Hokey.
Right. Well, that's OA, so that's a little different.
Right. But
hokey. Sorry.
You're right.
I thought you were saying hockey. Yeah. I thought you said hoagie. I misheard you.
Oh, no, hokey.
Like a Philly cheesesteak. Hokey. Right.
Yeah.
What's a more formal word for car?
Automobile.
So why don't we say automobile? Automobile.
Oh yeah, auto. I guess
automobile, right?
Yeah. You just have to know. Those are the things you just have to know.
Right. And that's something that I also wanted to mention in terms of pronunciation is try to be aware of how different sounds interact with each other.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that's you can only get from listening. That's once goes back to listening to things.
Exactly.
You can't just know that.
Right. And I think a lot of these will probably go back to listening. I think
for sure. Yeah.
What's funny is there was a German teacher in Vienna. We didn't have her because she taught the lower level students, but because she was one of the senior level teachers, she would always take the vocal students and the music students in her German class. And it was like German 1, beginning German, but she always had the best students because I think musicians and singers especially, their ears are so much better trained than the normal person. And if you're a singer, in theory, your mouth and your tongue should also be better trained.
Well, and a lot of those, like it's a lot of classical singers learn songs that in foreign languages that they don't have any of the slightest clue to speak. Like plenty of amazing singers have sang songs in say Italian or German or whatever, but theoretically they can't put a sentence. They couldn't make a sentence in Italian.
Right. They can't necessarily speak the language,
but
at
they
a
can speak
cognitive
it
level, but
beautifully
they can
when they sing
pronounce
it.
Exactly. And
But
I
it's
think
like,
the
this person
interesting
doesn't know Italian at all. Would you?
Right.
It's like they just
right. And I
know
think
how to
the
sing.
interesting thing with singing is a really good singer sounds accentless.
Right.
You know, they sound like a native speaker. And there are some people you can hear that are, groups from around the world, and you'll hear them sing in English, and they have little to no accent. And then the moment they speak English in an interview, it's like night and day. And I don't know why it's different, but it is.
I showed you a hip hop artist or rapper called Sirius Klein, and he's from Germany. And when he raps, you wouldn't really guess that he's German. But I would be very interested to hear what he sounds like just talking in English, because he was rapping in English, and he probably, if you weren't like a keenly trying to think about that stuff, you wouldn't really think that he's not American.
Right.
And so, but you wouldn't be, but I guess you wouldn't really be able to be like, oh, well, that guy's definitely from New York, or that's definitely a LA rapper. Like, I don't know if you'd be able to do that, but just be like, hey, it's an American guy.
Exactly.
But he's not, and I'd be interested to know what he sounds like, and just conversationally, because obviously he also speaks German probably perfectly. He's German.
Exactly. Well, Jared, I think we've done enough preaching. I think it's time for us to put our money where our mouths are and try to pronounce some difficult words. So let's start with German, because I feel like both of us are fairly confident in German.
Let me give you one first.
Okay, sounds good.
How do you say scrambled eggs in German?
Oh, that's a tough one. Hold on, let me get a sip of my tea. Let me clear my throat. Okay. Rühreier.
Ooh, that was good.
Rühreier. Rühreier. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Or the verb to stir is rühren.
Rühren. That's probably
That's
even
hard
harder.
one. Yeah, that's harder.
You know what word I always I remember my mom used to always struggle with. I was gonna say when we first moved to Germany, but she struggled with it the entire time we were there, and still now. Is chicken, but the way you say chicken in Germany.
Hähnchen?
Yes.
Okay.
My mom cannot do that.
What does she say?
Hähnchen.
Really? She can't say the A. The Hähnchen.
She can't do Hähnchen. She can't do like the hin.
Ah, okay. And see, that's a sound that I sometimes mess up. I will mess up my sh with my sh. Like when I first moved to Austria, I would say Französisch. Französisch, when it should be Französisch.
Yeah.
Which is the German word for French. But yeah, and I still do that occasionally. But it only happens if I'm talking fast. If I speak slowly, when I teach German, I don't usually make that mistake. All right, Jared, how do you say squirrel in German?
Of course, this is the classic, and I'm almost mad that I have to. All right, to be fair, I am looking at it, so that's going to help a little bit.
I would agree. That does help.
Because especially with German, because German's very phonetic.
Yeah.
And I've struggled with this word ever. But Hörnchen.
That was pretty good.
It definitely helps looking at it, because sometimes when I don't look at it, I also think it's like Hörnchen or something like that, or Hörnchen. Like I'll make like weird mistakes to it.
Right.
But yeah, Hörnchen.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Go ahead.
I wonder who is trying to spite who with this word, because what's so funny about this word is that the Germans can't say squirrel either.
Right, this is
No one
squirrel.
can say this word.
Squirrel. Yeah.
No one can say the word, so it's like it's English decided on squirrel, and German's like, oh yeah, okay, fine.
Eichhörnchen, yeah.
Say this.
Right. That's why you got to use the Austrian German word, Oachkatzel.
That's even harder.
That's easier.
I guess it is. It is easier.
Oachkatzel.
Well, that's true. It's easier, but it's still a weird sound for English speakers. Oachkatzel. It's actually a lot funner to say.
You said that really good. That's the other thing I forgot to mention while we were preaching was difficult words you have to break down syllable by syllable or even sound by sound. And I tell all of my beginning German students that, because I'll never forget I was teaching either German 101 or German 102, so first or second semester German, and we had the word Sehenswürdigkeit. which is like a tourist attraction or a site.
Sites.
Right, sites. There we go. Thank you. Of course, in German, it's way longer than sites. Sehenswürdigkeit.
But it makes perfect sense because it's like things that you would like that you're looking for.
Seaworthy thing. Right.
Yeah. So it just makes sense.
And so I literally had the class. I stopped the class and I said, "All right, sehens." They would repeat it. Würdigkeit. And eventually they got it. And you practice it slow and you build on it and you go faster and then you get it.
Well, that's the beauty of German, though. It's like so phonetic.
But you can do that with any language because it's all just sounds.
Which is also, I've heard that. Well, I was looking up like list of easiest to hardest languages to learn, and Italian is and actually Swedish and Norwegian are also easy to learn for that because they're for that reason because they're very phonetic languages.
Right, and so is Spanish as well.
Yeah, I guess I said Italian. I guess obviously Spanish.
Right, Spanish fits in there too.
Spanish would be too.
All right, Jared, you got another German word for me?
Oh yeah. How do you say a rubber ducky?
Oh, this is like
I'm looking at it and I still don't know how to say it.
Isn't it like Quietscheentchen or something?
Oh yeah, I guess that's pretty good.
Quietscheentchen?
I'll spell it for you. Quietscheentchen. So I didn't understand.
Is to squeak.
Okay, that's the hardest part. Is the quietsch. Quietsch. Quietsch is the hard part.
But see, you mentioned that reading these helps. I think reading this one makes it worse because of the two E's there.
Yeah.
Quietscheentchen. Yeah.
The two E's and the UIE is very weird.
Right. So, Jared, how do you say ice skating?
Oh, that one I can actually do, but that is a tough one. Schlittschuhlaufen.
Yeah, that was good.
Schlittschuhlaufen.
That's very good. Schlittschuhlaufen.
I think that one actually kind of fits our English mouths, our English-speaking mouth. Schlitt.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say
it's
so.
a schlitt.
Right.
But I can understand how other non-native German or English speakers would have a lot of trouble with that. Like it makes sense why that would be a tough one. Right. That schle is a lot of vowels and hard sounds.
Right.
Clashing.
Right.
Schlittschuhlaufen.
All right, give me some more German words.
How do you say this is little matchbox? Do you know how to say little matchbox?
Of course. Streichholzschächtelchen.
What?
Wait, let me say that one more time. Streichholzschächtelchen. Let me just toss that out there. So there's a reason, Jared. Let me tell you a quick little story. There's a reason why I can say this one. And it's not perfect, but I would say it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I was not trying to toot my own Hamhorn, even though I literally was a second ago. But when I was in Germany a couple summers ago, I had a German friend, and she taught me the tongue twister Czech little matchbox, which is Tschechische Streichholzschächtelchen.
Ooh.
So that's a tough one. And there's actually a meme online that says, you know you're German when you can pronounce Tschechische Streichholzschächtelchen. Sometimes it rolls off the tongue for me, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah. So, Jared, how do you say the word for Austria?
Österreich.
That was pretty good. That O umlaut in the beginning of any word to me is tough.
I still sometimes struggle with differentiating the U umlaut U and the O umlaut Ö.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
I probably did it wrong right there, but like I think those sounds because they're different, but it's a subtle mouth change. It's a subtle mouth change that you're doing.
Can I give you a tip as a German teacher?
Sure.
So there's two words that have the umlaut in the beginning and a similar ending. So we have über, which means over, right? And then we have öfter.
Uber. It means get a car when I'm hammered.
That's what's funny. Whenever I say Uber, my instinct automatically tries to say Uber. Yeah, Uber.
Yeah, but you'd sound like a real D-bag. If you're
right. Oh, did you call it the Uber? Could you please call it the Uber for me? The Uber. I had too many beers this evening and I need the Uber. But yeah, so über and öfter. So it means like over and more often. Über, öfter. There you go. But yeah, my umlauts aren't perfect either. and they are by far, I think, one of the hardest sounds to do in German. So speaking of umlauts, Jared, what's the verb in German to listen?
Hören.
But I mean the verb to listen.
To listen?
In aufhören means to quit.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you're right.
Zuhören.
Zuhören.
Zuhören, right? Hör mir, hey Junge, hör mir mal zu.
Oh, yeah.
Like, listen to me, right?
Yeah.
Hör mal zu. Zuhören, I think, is a hard one to say as well.
Zuhören. Yeah.
But we can say it decent, but I think for a lot of people it's difficult. Jared, do you know the German word for to monitor?
What do you mean by monitor?
Like monitoring or spying.
Well, I don't know.
Überwachung.
Oh, yeah. I did know that.
Überwachung.
Überwachung. That is hard for a lot of people.
Well, I think it's because it's not a pretty sound, so a lot of people don't try to make it. But when I speak German, I got to go all in. I mean, Überwachung. You can't hold back on that. You just can't.
Yeah, Überwachung. Yeah. Yeah, the word won't really come out right if you don't.
Right.
You kind of have to embrace embrace it.
Right. So Jared, go ahead.
No, were you gonna? Because I was gonna change languages.
Oh, sweet. All right.
We've talked a lot about German.
Yeah,
'cause that's what
before
we
you
know so
change
much
languages, I want one more.
Okay.
I'm just going to say this word. It's
Give it
an
to me.
amazing word. It is, I don't even know how many letters it is, but it's a ton of letters. And here it is. And I'll say it slow first. Rindfleisch-Etikettierungs-Überwachungs-Aufgabenübertragungsgesetz.
All right, let me take a stab at that.
Okay.
Steak. Wait, I need to.
Also, by the way, it's a 63-letter long word.
Let me. You say.
I'll say it slow again. Yeah.
Okay.
Rindfleisch.
Steak.
Or beef.
Or beef. Yeah.
Beef.
Yeah.
I would say beef.
They don't really do
Rindfleisch.
steak.
I mean, they do, but they call it steak.
Okay.
But Rindfleisch-Etikettierungs.
Okay. Beef etiquette. Okay.
Überwachungs. I just told you what this one means.
Monitoring.
So Rindfleisch-Etikettierungs-Überwachungs.
Beef etiquette monitoring.
Aufgaben.
Assignment.
Or task, yeah.
Task. Okay.
Übertragung.
Assignment's close. That's the same thing.
Yeah. Übertragung.
I don't know what that is.
Übertragung is like supervision, I think.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's supervision. And then Gesetz is
like an essay or
Gesetz, not Aufsatz, but Gesetz.
gazettes.
That's law.
Law.
It's law.
I was gonna say. I was like. I knew I kind of knew it because I was like. It's obviously not police, but for some reason that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Right. Yeah. So it's law. So this is the law of supervision of the labeling of beef, and in German it's all one word.
That's hilarious.
Rindfleisch-Etikettierungs-Überwachungsgesetz.
That is definitely what the Germans are best at, is for long ass words.
Right. Compound words, definitely.
It once you start learning German, it actually makes perfect sense, and the logic behind combining those words does start to make sense, even though they do sound ridiculously long. The long one that my sister told me when I was first learning German, when we not I, were first learning German, was maximum speed limit.
What Geschwindigkeits
Grenze? Maximal Geschwindigkeit. I think there might be more after that, but I don't remember anymore.
Right.
But it's just a combination of words.
I would think it would be Maximal Geschwindigkeitsbegrenzung would be my guess.
Maybe it was.
But anyways, let's get to some other languages.
Yeah, so Spanish. So here are some words that native Spanish speakers, some English words that native Spanish speakers will struggle to pronounce. So Spanish, let me explain a little bit about Spanish, especially in comparison to English real quick. Spanish has 5 pure vowels and 5 diphthongs. Do you know what a diphthong is?
It's die meaning two, and a diphthong is basically when a vowel makes 2 sounds.
Oh, okay. Oh, so English is filled with those.
Yeah. Especially Southern American English. There's a lot of them.
Vowel length is not significant in distinguishing between words. However, English has 12 pure vowel sounds and 8 diphthongs.
Yep.
The length of the vowel sound plays an important role. It is not surprising, therefore, that Spanish background learners may have great difficulty in producing or even perceiving the various English vowel sounds. So here are some words that a Spanish speaker might struggle with.
Before you get there, can I take a guess?
I
What
was
sound?
just about to ask if you had any ideas of words, because one of your best friends is a native Spanish speaker.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends, a couple from Mexico, a couple from Chile, a couple from Spain. The hardest sound that I've heard with them was the short I, the like hit. Like
one
if
of the
you ask a
words,
Spanish, go ahead.
Well, one of the words is ship.
Yep. So if you ask a Spanish speaker to say ship and sheep, and there's
that's
actually
exactly what it says.
and there's actually a tool I use in a lot of my English lessons.
Or kitchen, that's another one.
Right. There's a tool I use called minimal pairs, where you have two words that are almost the same, like bin and bean. And you do this with a partner, and you follow, it's called a minimal pair maze. And they're really helpful for English learners because we do have so many words that have, they're very similar, but the vowel sound might be different, right? Like slip and sleep. I had the Spanish students in my class do that, and they eventually, by the end of class, they could hear the difference. But in the beginning, they couldn't hear the difference when I was saying it, and I'm a native speaker, right? And then I said, okay,
and a teacher, so you're saying as clearly as possible.
Right, exactly. But the trick is you have to, like I said, they had to watch my mouth. I had to really enunciate everything very, very clearly. But yeah, that short I is difficult.
See, I've obviously never thought about that one because I can clearly hear the difference because I'm a native English speaker, and because I've never really taken any sort of learned Spanish more than the swear words.
Right, which is the first thing everyone learns.
But when you just explain it to me, it's like, oh, of course those are would sound very similar, ship and sheep,
right?
And they're obviously two completely different things. So now these are some words you've probably encountered with your friends. Because they've stayed at your house. You've probably stayed at some of their houses, maybe. I don't know if you've never been to Chile, have you?
Not yet. It's on the list.
Breakfast. That's a tough one. Have you noticed that?
Yep. Uh-huh.
And so a simple word for all of us, obviously. But it's tough for the Spanish speakers because that cluster, that consonant cluster, the KF.
B and the R, too.
The B and the BR. I thought it was the KF.
Also probably the KF, but I think more the BR. Because a B in Spanish is... A B and a V in Spanish are very similar. My Spanish-speaking friends, whenever they said volleyball, it was always volleyball.
Yes,
volleyball.
I've heard that. I've heard that one a lot before. Not the volleyball specifically, but the V's turning into B's.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it with Volvo.
Right, right. And the thing is, with the B and the R, the way we say our R's, we don't use our tongue on the roof of our mouth. It's actually kind of more towards the middle of our mouth.
Right.
If you say breakfast, it's not breakfast, it's breakfast.
I see what you're saying. That what they're saying. So how the Spanish speakers would say is like breakfast. Without the K and without the T.
Right.
And I think the K and the T, especially, it's too much consonant for what they're used to, which makes perfect sense because their language sounds way better than ours.
Yeah, I would agree.
Another word that they struggle with is teeth.
Oh, yeah.
They would say teat because, once again, that TH is a struggle for just about any non-native English speaker.
And as an English teacher,
Sorry, I just want to say, I've even noticed that a lot of native English speakers struggle with that TH. My cousin Chris Blaker, he's not my cousin, that's my friend. My cousin Chris that we mentioned, it's probably best that I forget that I don't use his last name.
Probably.
My cousin Chris that we mentioned on a previous episode, he is obviously a native English speaker, he's American, but when the TH is at the end of a word, he always turns into an F. So like breath, he'd say breath, or teeth, he'd say teeth. And I've heard other people do that before where they cannot do that. And it's specifically at the end of the sentence, though.
Right.
Because he can say he can say that. He's not saying fat or pho.
It's just easier to say.
Yeah. I guess it's just how your mouth has to form. And so you start with it rather than going into it.
Right. Well, and I can tell you as an English teacher, for all of our non-native English-speaking listeners out there, the proper way in order to make the TH sound is, I know it sounds silly, but you have to put your tongue in the middle of your teeth and then blow out. It's the only way you can make that sound. There's no other way that you can make that sound. But the other tricky thing about
like once you tell a foreign speaker that, they get it immediately.
Yes and no, because you have to do it.
I mean, I'm biased because I already know how to do it.
Well, what I would suggest would be first just isolate the sound. So you're only going right? And then pick some words where the sound is in the beginning of the word.
Yeah.
Repeat that a lot. Then maybe in the middle of the word, like a word like bother, right? And then at the end of the word, like teeth.
So the hardest is ending with it.
I don't know. I would assume actually the hardest would be in the middle.
Okay, because starting's the easiest, right?
Right. I would say
because you can actually
right.
put some focus on it.
But the other difficulty is we have two slightly different sounds in English. We don't say this, we say this.
Right.
Right? Teeth, this, the.
This. Right. Oh, yeah.
The sound.
We're not saying this.
Right. We're not saying the, we're saying the. So the tongue is still in the middle of your teeth, but it's not as voiced. It's different. So that also causes some problems for English learners.
It's so funny, though, that it's so funny to me that us as English speakers, we're the most privileged in the sense that we're the least likely to have to learn another language. Yet we also have one of the most difficult languages to pronounce.
Right.
And so it's just like we we're the least likely to learn another language, and we're also expecting other people to know a very hard language to learn.
Right. Which bothers me a lot, that I wish more English speakers would try to learn other languages. But that we can do another episode on that. That's a whole nother box of worms. I would like to mention one word that I have specifically seen here in the Czech Republic.
By the way, go ahead. I have one more Spanish one I want to give you first.
Oh, okay, go for it.
One more
Yeah.
I know we're going long, but I want to give you one more Spanish one because this is funny. Focus.
Okay.
So
I'm assuming they say like fuck us.
Yeah. That long O is very difficult, and so they tend to say fuck us.
Okay.
And it would if you were to phonetically spell it, it would be like FUHCUS or FUCKUS. And I just find that funny. Sorry.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard that too.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I've heard many Czech people, when they say fact, they don't say the a. It's more of a fucked.
So do they don't have that sort of ass sound really?
There aren't many languages that have that very nasalized a.
German might be one of the closer ones with the a umlaut.
Yeah,
but that's still not a. That's like a.
Yeah, später.
Yeah.
Äpfel.
That's a good point.
It's not apfel, it's Äpfel. That's a
good point.
Different. It is different. But yeah, one word though that I have heard a lot of Czechs make a mistake with, which is a difficult word if you look at the spelling, is the word choir.
Yes.
Because it's CHOIR and we say choir. Like it's K.
And it's like a lot of noises in one almost. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
for such a short word. Yeah.
R is very difficult. A lot going on in there.
Right. It's not chore. It's choir.
And that does seem like a complex. And this is me watching you closely now, because obviously these are words I never think of because I just know how to say them.
Right.
But as I watch your mouth, like it's a complicated move, and there's not a lot of like hard sounds to break up that move.
Right.
So and for someone that's not used to saying that, I guess it's hard to sort of force out all that air,
right?
And not really have any hard sounds to break it up.
Another really difficult sound.
I think choir is hard for a lot of languages, by the way. I don't think that's specific to Czech.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree.
That one comes up a lot. I think Germans struggle with that too, actually.
Oh, I'm sure most non-native English speakers do. Another set of letters or words, well, they're actually numbers that are difficult for non-native speakers is any one that ends in a like sixth, fifth, fourth.
Yes, for sure.
Those are tricky.
I mean, that's mixing two difficult things. I mean,
sixth,
the TH, and then for the Spanish people, for example, as you mentioned, that I sound is difficult.
Right. I think another type of words that are difficult for non-native English speakers are words we have with an R, with, I guess you could call it kind of like an R sandwich with a vowel in between, like mirror. We don't say mirror, we say mirror. It's almost like we say M-E-E-E-R, right?
Yeah, mirror.
Right. No one says mirror. We say mirror.
Yeah, mirror.
I looked in the mirror today. I did.
Yeah.
I don't say I looked in the mirror today. Or another one that's difficult is the word rural.
Yes.
Like I'm living
For a
out in the
similar
country.
reason.
Yeah, rural. Yeah. It's
Why
tough.
do we do this? Why is this? Why does English do this? Why is it so complex like that?
It's just the way we make the R sound. And what's funny is I've heard Germans tell me that English kind of sounds like we have peanut butter stuck on the roof of our mouth.
I remember my sister telling me she had a friend from Spain when we lived in Germany, and she said her friend had an amazing American accent. Never been to America before, by the way. This is like, the Spanish person that I don't think's ever been to America. And she said all she did was like squeeze her nose and got super nasally, and it just sounded very American. And my sister was like, I was almost kind of offended to realize that all it takes is just get super nasally, and you can sound American.
I mean, that's pretty true, though. That's really, really true.
Oh my god! That was this was obviously I was like 8th grade or something like that. But this was the first time I even realized that the American accent is a staple of it is nasal. I didn't know that.
Oh, it's super true. It's super true.
But that was before. I mean, I was young. I had no reason to analyze my accent or what that
compare
it to anything else. But
of course not. Are there any other words you can think of, Jared, that are difficult for non-native English speakers? I think we've covered a lot of them.
We have, and we've been going long. I mean, there are a bunch, but it's just interesting to really pay close attention to your face and realize and actually think about and recognize why these words that are so difficult, why they would be.
So speaking of difficult words to pronounce, I want to give you a couple Czech words that I have been having a super difficult time trying to pronounce. So this first one is Thursday, which is probably a hard one for non-native English speakers to pronounce in English. Thursday. And the Czech word, I'll tell you how it's spelled, Jared, first, so you can kind of visualize it. It's C with a ha Czech, which is a ch sound, then followed by a T, a V, an R, a T.
Whoa. Too many. Oh, you haven't said one vowel yet.
So it's C, T, V, R, T, E, K. And that C at the beginning is pronounced a ch.
Can I try first?
Yeah, try it.
I wrote it down. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 consonants and 1 vowel in this word.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Oh my god. Čtvrtek.
It's not too bad.
Čtvrtek.
I have to say it piece by piece because I can't say čtvrtek at once because the ch with the t and the v all crammed in there are so difficult to say. See, I can't get the T after the ch sound.
You're thinking too much about it now.
I guess so, yeah. Čtvrtek. That was a little better.
Čtvrtek.
That's a tough one, right? The next one I have for you is the Czech word for 4. And it is another C with the ha Czech, so it's a ch. Mm-hmm. Then a T, a Y, an R with a ha Czech, which is like the little arrow, and that is the r sound.
Uh-oh.
And the I, and then there's an I at the end.
All right.
So how do you think you say this one?
Čtvrtek. Oh, jeez. Čtvrtek. I can't do the hot check though.
Right. It's
the R hot check.
It's
Čtvrtek. Čtvrtek.
It's
Čtvrtek.
it's
I want to get it.
It's čtyři.
Čtvrtek.
Čtyři. It's really. I have to really focus really hard to say.
Yeah.
A lot of times I just say čtyři is what usually comes out, but it's čtyři. And the word for 3 is tri. It's T R ha Czech I. So it's got the r. So it's T r I. Tri.
Well, a lot of those European. I mean, most of those European languages outside of like the Romance ones. A lot of those Baltic countries, a lot of the Eastern European countries. That's all. all those over usage of consonants is way out of our American mouth abilities.
Right. All right, Jared, I got a couple more for you in Czech, though.
Okay.
This one is spelled P-R-S-T, and it means finger.
P-R-S-T, so there's no vowels in this
No
one.
vowels.
P-R-S-T, prst.
Purst.
Purst.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Purst.
Purst. Purst.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was good. That was pretty good.
Purst. Okay.
The next one, this is the Czech word for silver, and it's S-T-R with the hot check.
Okay.
S-T-R hot check I-B-R-O.
Stribro.
Okay, wait.
Stribro.
Stribro. I can't completely do it either, but yeah, that one's a tough one.
Stribro. Ugh.
Okay, the next one. The next one is...
Call an ambulance.
I'll give you a word with one vowel. That's all you're going to get, one vowel. It's P-R-S-K-A-T. And it's the verb to snarl.
Prskat.
Perskat.
Prskat. I try to do too much. That's what
Perskat.
Prskat. But this is also coming from someone that doesn't even know how to like put Czech letters together properly. So.
Right. And I'm slowly getting there.
I just tried to do too much with every word.
Right. So this next one means poke, and it's S-T-R-C hot check, so the ch sound I-T.
Chishik.
Starchit.
Oh.
It means poke.
Starchik. I misunderstood.
Starchik. Starchit. Sorry. Starchit.
Starchit. That one I can actually do.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, a Czech person would be like, "What did you just say?"
Right, exactly. Exactly. And actually we're going to jump a little bit, and I'm actually going to do our Czech word of the pod right now because it's so on topic. Parada. And the word is řeřika, which means watercress in Czech. Řeřika.
I think I've heard this one before.
I probably have mentioned it on the pod because it has two of the r right next to each other. It's r, I, r, I-C-H-A. Řeřika. Řeřika. That's the close to the proper way to say it.
Are watercress a common occurrence in Czech cuisine?
I don't think so, but I think they just love this word because they have foreigners try to say it all the time.
Right. Okay.
I mean, if I had a beer for every time I've been asked to say řeřika, I don't think I would have to buy a drink the rest of my time in the Czech Republic.
So Czech people just like to laugh watching you butcher that word?
Of course. But now because I'm slowly starting to somewhat pronounce it correctly.
Less fun.
Right. I'm spoiling all their fun. Exactly.
You're like, oh, that's actually not that bad.
Exactly. Well, speaking
That's
of
great.
sounds.
Good. I'm good for you. Good for you, Chad.
I'm
Show
trying.
'em. You show them.
That's right. Speaking of sounds, I think it's time we move on and talk about our song of the pod for the evening. What do you think?
Oh, hell yeah, man. So this, I guess I'll introduce it because this is by our boy Michael Zupstrom, right? Strum?
Yep.
And so, as I mentioned, as if I assumed anyone that's listening right now knows that I went to a concert. It's not the radio. For those of you just tuning in, I went to a concert at someone's house by this guy. But this is one of his pieces that he did not perform at the Red Velvet Hall concert. But I figured, hey, why not talk about it? Because one, we like to include international people. He's American, however. This is performed by Benjamin Beilman, who's American. Luosha Feng, who was at the concert that I went to the other day. She's Chinese. And Vicky Powell, Luosha was playing violin. Vicky Powell, also American, playing viola. And then Juan Lee, who was
Korean, right?
Yep. Was playing cello. And so it's still we still got an international group of performers.
Very talented musicians.
Yeah, one of them, and I feel honored that I even got to see Luosha. Like now that I listen to it, I'm like, wow, it's so crazy that I got to see you play live.
Right.
And so this song is classical piece. You know, it's contemporary classical is what they'd call it.
I was just going to say,
mistaken.
I was just about to stop you right there and say, well, yeah, I would say it's more contemporary. Maybe you could call it contemporary classical.
That's what Michael mentioned during his performance the other day, is that he is and I believe also Bartok and Dvorak are considered Dvorak. Dvorak are considered Dvorak are considered.
There you go. You got it.
I'm trying to get it to stick in there.
You got it.
Are considered contemporary classical artists as well. No.
Maybe
Your face just okay.
I'm not. I don't know
Maybe
if
not.
I'd call it contemporary.
But are they not late 1800s?
Yeah, but is that considered contemporary? I thought contemporary was later. It's been a while since I've opened up my music history textbook. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I think I feel like I remember Drupstrom claiming it to be contemporary classical.
Contemporary classic.
Don't let me talk this Mike's name out of his name because he's a legitimate composer professional, and I don't want to put the stuff on him that's wrong that he probably didn't say.
well, here now, according to Wikipedia, so take it how you will. Contemporary classical music can be understood as belonging to the period that started in the 70s to the early 90s. Then
so
you have
contemporary,
modernist, postmodern, neo-romantic, and pluralist music.
So only Drupstrom is the contemporary one.
Right.
Okay. Well, regardless, can you give your review opinion of this piece because this is my first time listening to it, just like you. But I thought it would be cool to feature someone that I saw, and you're way more versed in analyzing classical music than I am.
I wish you would have asked me this when I was still in undergrad because I could have given you a thorough analysis on it.
With the academic terms and everything?
Right, exactly. I have to say, it took me a minute to become a fan of it because it's kind of the piece of music, I think itself, and I'm not going to speak for the composer, but at least the feeling I get is one of a lot of tension. I feel like this would be an amazing movie soundtrack piece.
I sensed a lot of that when I was listening to him too. And there's even one piece he did, the Daydreams in Night Vision. Mm-hmm. He said that song felt like there was a lot of tension and darkness in there, and he said that it was 6 movements. It wasn't terribly long, but it was 6 movements, and it was 3 happy ones and 3 kind of darker ones. Mm-hmm. But to me, I struggle to differentiate the happy ones from the darker ones. So I just want to throw that in there. So, like the fact that you mentioned that, I noticed that yesterday when I was listening to him as well.
Right. I mean, the piece starts off with, speaking of trills, I believe might be a viola trill, could be violin as well.
Yeah, it's hard to differentiate those two by ear.
Right. And the piece of music itself almost sounds like, at least to my ear, it sounds kind of like the instruments are, they're like kind of portraying like a chase or like a race because it's like all these faster parts and they're kind of layered a little bit. It's a beautiful piece of music, but I would say it's not something that I would listen to if I was trying to just sit there and relax and have some beautiful music in the background. I would say it's a piece of music where, honestly, I might even put this on like a playlist. If I ever ran, I would put this on a playlist maybe for running.
Interesting. Yeah, because it does it does have a sense of urgency for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
And I understand what you're saying when you say that.
And there's not a ton of resolution. Like I keep expecting the piece to resolve somewhere, and then it continues with this kind of tense, eerie vibe to it.
Another funny that you say that. I love that. See, that's why I love that I brought this up because I noticed that at yesterday where I was often surprised that a song was over. I was like, oh, really? That's where you're going to end it?
Right.
Where it kind of felt like, where it was like, oh, that's it. I noticed a lot of that yesterday as well.
Because it's crazy. Our ears expect it usually to resolve somewhere. Like,
and that's what I've learned that learning piano is like you learn about music structure, so you understand how a resolution arrives,
right.
And then you also learn about what a resolution is, so how you set up chord progressions to say end on the same chord that you started with. For example.
Yeah, usually you use
because it's a similar sound. You're familiar with it.
Right, you use a dominant 5th chord, and then you end it on the root chord. Sometimes if you want to sound more religious, you will do a 4th and then
I was
end
gonna
on
say
the
that,
first.
but I was scared too because I was like, that's not it.
And
You don't know
that's
what you're
that's
talking
the
about.
that's the amen. That's the 4
Yes.
1. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, but I think that's also what's really cool about this music is that it leaves the listener on edge, which I think some people may not enjoy, but I think if you're a fan of music, especially classical or instrumental music, Long Ago by Michael Jupstrom is definitely worth a listen for sure.
Hopefully we can get him on.
We'll see. I'd love to talk his brain about music and we can talk more about his pieces and maybe
I'm sure
also some Dvorak as well.
I can go to him. I can sit in his piano studio. It's probably great acoustics in there.
Right, for sure.
I'll email him.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jared, for this song. This is a fantastic song.
I'm genuinely glad I got your opinion because I find it interesting, but I don't have the words or education to talk about it with any sort of.
I hope it was all
like
you
I know
hoped
what I'm
for and
talking about.
more.
Oh, it was.
I hope so.
It was.
Parada. Well, thank you, sir. Well, Jared, I have a couple. I decided today, since we're talking about speaking a little bit, and obviously listening because they go hand in hand, I figured another really good way to improve your speaking and listening is by the use of puns, because you have to listen very closely in order to understand the meaning of a pun. Mm-hmm. Usually, you need to
usually. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done.
and it's usually, obviously a word that has multiple meanings, which also will improve your kind of the collocations or the other words you associate with it. So
Misdirection, taking a word that you expect and and changing the meaning of it or something like that.
So I have 2 puns for you today, Jared, and for all of our listeners out there. So, Jared, what does a clock do when it's hungry?
What does it do? I don't know.
It goes back for seconds.
I see that. That's a classic pun right there.
It's pretty clever, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
It goes back for seconds. Seconds meaning a second plate or a second dish. Also seconds meaning in time. For all of our listeners out there that didn't get it. All right, Jared, my last joke of the pod or pun of the pod today is, how do trees access the internet?
I know the answer. I hate to know. I hate to figure. Is this an original one?
No.
Okay, then I don't feel as bad ruining it. They have a login.
That doesn't sound so great. I would say they log on.
Oh, that's better. That's better. Cleaner. Well
They
written.
log on. That's right. But yeah,
Okay.
and that's another thing too. I think telling jokes and listening to jokes might also be a good way to practice your pronunciation, because I think jokes and puns as well, you need a special kind of delivery.
I hear that a lot, by the way. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and most of the podcasts I listen to are comedic podcasts by famous comedians. And they say that, and some of them people will email in and say, I love listening to you. Like, I'm from Serbia and my English is just okay, but I love listening. Like, my favorite way to learn English is by listening to an American person just bullshit without even, like, they don't say this, but, like, what they're getting at is, like, without even, like, concerning yourself for what other people, like, what people from other countries are saying, but just bullshitting naturally.
Right.
And just listening to someone complain about their day is a great way to, because everyone can relate to what they're talking about, and it's funny.
Right.
But some of the words you're like, oh, like, I get what you're angry about, but I've never heard someone say trolley to explain a shopping cart, for example.
Exactly. Right. Well, and I think podcasts and YouTube and movies and television series or Netflix series or whatever will teach you a lot of the language that you're not going to get in the classroom, because there's just not enough time in the classroom to do that.
And teachers, it's not really teachers' place to be teaching heavy amount of slang.
Correct. I agree. 100%.
And so it is useful to get all that stuff, but it's not really a teacher's place, because teachers are supposed to be teaching you how to properly speak a language.
Exactly.
And what I've always learned from all my language teachers is, like, I'll teach you slang after you've mastered German or French or whatever.
Right. Exactly. Didn't you have a teacher in Germany that had that?
Yeah.
Philosophy?
Well, I had a teacher that was strictly against us using any sort of slang in our class. And this was not a beginner class. This was like an advanced German class. So she knew that we were all good enough to communicate.
Right.
But we would obviously speak like we would speak to our friends. And she would always say, don't use slang in my class until you're perfect at Hochdeutsch, essentially.
Proper German, standard German. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very true.
And obviously none of us were, even though we could speak fluently as we thought, none of us were perfect or anywhere close.
Right, of course. And that brings me to kind of the closing point of our episode today, is that, yes, pronunciation is important, but I would say being accentless is not a very good goal or realistic goal to have. And I say good goal because you shouldn't think of yourself in a negative light if you're learning any foreign language and you have an accent. Even if when you start out, it's a fairly thick accent. If people can still understand you, that's really all that matters. And that brings
I mean, there are English speakers, I find this ridiculous, but there are English speakers that have like thick accents. Say you're from India, or say you're from from some African country. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but like that'll have like English as the national language, yet they have their accent. So it's like you might not be able to fully understand them. And I've noticed Americans assume, especially with the Indian one, because I know Indian people, assume that they can't speak English. It's like, no, this person is a native English speaker and they're speaking perfectly. You just are not used to that accent. So your ignorance assumes that they're not speaking English properly.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. I think in the future we should do an episode on what does the term world English mean, and what are the different types of Englishes around the world, because there are so many more types of English than just American English and British English and Australian English. We can talk about that later.
I brought a Singaporean untranslatable that was English, half English, like half Chinese or something like that a while ago.
Oh, that would be interesting. But yeah, so don't feel bad about if you have an accent, but we hope this episode has been useful for all of you to improve your pronunciation, or at least feel more confident in speaking. Also, Jared mentioned, people from around the world listening to podcasts. We are so thankful to have such an international crowd listening to our episodes. We really appreciate it, and we hope our podcast can also help you along the way. And to end our episode today, I have a quote from Amy Chua, which is,
"Who dat?
Do you know what a foreign accent is? It is a sign of bravery." And I could not agree more.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And as I've said 100,000 times on this podcast, I'm always nervous to speak like a German, when I'm to a native speaker. But I always have to remind myself, whenever I hear someone that's not a native English speaker speak English with an accent, I'm never like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that word. I'm usually shocked and impressed that they are that proficient in a language that's not their native one.
Exactly. Generally, I would say people tend to look at the positives of the situation, unless they're just an ignorant jerk, and then they'll say, "Oh, they pronounced that word wrong." But usually, I would say people go the opposite way.
People that are that ignorant jerk probably also can only speak English.
Exactly. So just take that as a little nugget of knowledge, gold nugget of knowledge for all of you. A foreign accent is a sign of bravery, and you should wear that accent, that badge with pride, that you're brave enough to try to learn another language.
You betcha.
And keep on keeping on, everybody out there. And we really hope you enjoy this episode on pronunciation tips. Also enjoyed Jared and I trying to pronounce some difficult words in some foreign languages. I will say we cheated a little bit since we picked languages that we are learning, but I'm sure we may revisit this topic at some point in the future, and we'll have to come with some new languages to really show you all how difficult it can be, and you should not be afraid. And we would love to hear any words that you have difficulty pronouncing. Shoot us an email at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com with any words in English or any foreign languages you are learning. We're very curious to hear from you. We would also love if you would take a look at our pop-in Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. We have clips and other photos from our travels and whatnot. And I have to give a special thanks to my co-host Jared for all these amazing murals of Philly. I really need to go to Philly after seeing all these. Also, slide into our DMs and check out our Twitter for all sorts of sassy and witty comments. At least I think they're sassy and witty from Jared, and some retweets of some things going on around the Polyglot Nation. I don't know if that's the correct term, but that's the term we'll be using, I guess. So once again, we thank you all so much. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll have another one coming to you very soon. So thank you very, very much, and děkujeme.